Welcome to our Voices for Impact talk, Gender Lens Investing. Why should we apply a gender lens to the financial markets? What are the opportunities for advancing gender equality? These are the questions we want to discuss today on the occasion of the International Women's Day 2022. My name is Renate Günther, and I have the pleasure to be one of the co-founders of the Geneva Macro Labs Do Tank. And I will be moderating this Voices for Impact talk today with my colleague, Kathleen Ostheim. I'm delighted to welcome our speaker, David Uszeki from the International Institute for Sustainable Development, IISD, who will help us understand the importance of gender considerations in investment decisions and how to scale up financing in that area. David will also talk about the role that sustainable bonds can play. Just a short bio. David is a sustainable finance lead and senior advisor in IISD's economic law and policy program. He has several years of experience in informing and advising public and private investors, government officials, and financial market participants on how to allocate capital so that it can be better aligned with sustainability objectives. I'm happy to hand over now to my colleague Kathleen to kick off the questions.
What is gender lens investing and why is it important?
All right, thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this podcast. So before starting with why it is important, I just would like to make sure that we are all on the same page with all the listeners about what gender lens investing or GLI actually means. There are many definitions, but I tend to define gender lens investing as the use of capital to both generate financial return and advance gender equality. So it can also refer to the integration of gender analysis throughout the investment cycles, such as sourcing investments or financial analysis, etc. So the question is, why is it important? So first, achieving gender equality is essential for a prosperous and sustainable world, as it affects so many aspects of sustainable development. So unfortunately, most people do not realize that the most pressing environmental and social challenges of our time impact women disproportionately. For example, women are particularly vulnerable to climate change, as it can worsen existing gender inequalities. Also, gender inequality is a key driver of poverty, while it is also one of the most common forms of discrimination. So for this reason, I believe that addressing this issue should be a priority, especially for investors with a sustainability mandate. And on top of all this, the good news is that it can even have a positive impact on the financial performance. So companies with a gender diverse workforce are likely to outperform their peers.
Why are you talking about the importance of gender considerations in investment decisions?
So as I mentioned, gender diversity can have a positive impact on the performance of companies and even investment funds. The correlation between gender and financial performance is especially strong in case of executive teams and boards. So based on the research that we have seen that covers more than 1,000 companies from 15 countries, companies with gender diverse boards are 28% more likely to outperform their peers, while gender diversity in executive teams increases the chance of outperformance by 25%. So, and there's also a significant difference in financial performance between leaders and laggards. So companies with executive teams with more than 30% female members are 48% more likely to outperform companies with only 10% or less women in their executive teams. So similarly, venture and private equity funds with gender balanced investment teams have 20% higher returns than their peers.
Thank you, David. That's interesting. But why should investors care? What is the business case for gender investment?
So basically, the business case is what I just mentioned earlier. So basically, there is a very strong correlation between financial and gender performance. And this is especially important when it comes to executive teams and boards. But as I mentioned at the end, this correlation is also very strong when it comes to venture capital and private equity funds.
Yeah, actually, that's great. But where do we stand? What is the current state of gender lens investing today?
Yeah, so as you probably know, sustainable investing has experienced an impressive growth in recent years, reaching about 40 trillion, so it's 40 trillion US dollars in assets under management. At the same time, what we are seeing is that only a fraction of this amount, so about like $17 billion, has gone into gender-labeled instruments. While this number would be higher if we included all instruments with any trace of gender in them. I think this number demonstrates well that there is still a long way to go before gender catches up with other popular sustainable investing themes such as climate or natural capital.
And what is your proposition to scale up financing to meet gender objectives?
Well, we actually believe at ISD that to scale up financing to meet gender objectives, all new sustainable bond issues, irrespective of their thematic focus, should include gender considerations in their bond frameworks. So, for example, a green bond that focuses on financing green buildings would also need to apply gender criteria in how it allocates its proceeds.
Okay, and why is integrating gender considerations into sustainable bonds the answer?
But applying a gender lens across all new sustainable bond issues, I think, represents a significant opportunity for advancing gender equality when we are looking at the numbers. So what you have to keep in mind that total new issuance of sustainable bonds was worth more than $1.1 trillion US globally in 2021 alone, which is more than 60 times the size of all outstanding gender-labeled instruments today across all asset classes. So I think this number demonstrates well the size of this opportunity that we are talking about here today. But also I want to make sure here that we are on the same page when it comes to definitions. So when I say sustainable bonds, I mean green bonds, I mean social bonds, I mean sustainability bonds, and also sustainability-linked bonds. So we just published a guide on this to actually help issuers and other relevant stakeholders working on sustainable bond issuance with how this gender integration could be done in practice.
Thank you, David. That's a very important point. I think I'm encouraged to consider gender lens investing. Thank you for having been our guest today. Please reach out to us via the channels that you can see on the screen. We would be happy to have your feedback and to hear from you. Wish you a very good rest of the day and look forward to seeing you soon at another Geneva Microlabs talk.